How's it going, everybody? In this video we're covering the very basics of Guardbreak Vulnerability on attacks. For most of you this is probably old news, but if you ever looked at Reddit or even in my comment section, the question, why did my Guardbreak bounce off, is still asked so often. I think this video needed to be made. So if you're someone who's not sure why your Guardbreak just bounced off an attack instead of interrupting the guy, then this is the video for you. I'll try and make it as detailed and clear as possible, but there will be numbers, guys. There will be numbers. To start off, we need to look at the basic chart for Guardbreak Vulnerability. This might seem pretty straightforward, but there's some variance to it in specific scenarios. I'm going to pick a few attacks and show you the timings. Just to make it perfectly clear, even light attacks have Guardbreak Vulnerability. Because of how indicators in multiplayer work, you will often see none at all, but you've just grabbed someone out of his light attack. This is also the reason why we'll have to add 67 milliseconds to all values in this video, because that's the timing when the actual input was given compared to when the indicator is shown. But let's look at the first instance that people for some weird reason still try to do. Heavy feint Guardbreak against a character like Gladiator or Conqueror. Gladiator's raw heavies are 700 milliseconds, which means 100 milliseconds of Guardbreak Vulnerability, the same as a light attack. So no matter who you are, or if you have a soft feint into Guardbreak, the timing will never work out. I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you now, so pay attention. Shaman's soft feint Guardbreak happens at 400 milliseconds into the attack. The Guardbreak takes another 400 milliseconds to reach. The soft feint thus happens 100 milliseconds before the earliest possible parry for your opponent, and 300 milliseconds before the latest possible parry. Which means that even if your opponent parried at the very last frame, your Guardbreak will connect too late. And this was with a soft feinted Guardbreak, the earliest Guardbreak you can get. So I don't think I have to explain why a heavy hard feint into Guardbreak is a stupid thing to do against characters like Gladiator. For the next category, the 800 to 1000 milliseconds attacks, we're going to look at Raider first. This is also the category that most heavy attacks fall into. We're going to see both results in this category, successful Guardbreaks and bounce-offs. The reason for that is the parry window being 200 milliseconds. This means you can parry really early or really late. This makes a huge difference when you try to feint into Guardbreak to punish a parry attempt. The first thing I time here is when after my feint Allmeister parries. The value is 333, which means it's 167 milliseconds into the parry window. A rather late parry. So it results in a Guardbreak. The next measured timing is 233. This means it's 67 milliseconds into the parry window and a rather early parry. And here I bounce off. If we look at the Guardbreak Vulnerability window, the first Guardbreak connects at 333 milliseconds into his attack, resulting in a successful grab. The second one connects at 467 milliseconds, which is too late and results in a bounce off. I hope this all makes sense so far. We're going to stick with looking at when into the attack the Guardbreak connects to make it easier to understand. Always remember to add the 67 milliseconds to the value you see on the timer. By doing this we can see that the first Guardbreak connects before 400 milliseconds and the second one later. This means both side and top heavy from Raider fall perfectly within the rules. Kensei's top heavy is another one of those attacks that people call an exception, but that one as well is working as intended. In these instances shown, it all boils down to whether the parry was initiated early or late within the parry window. And for our last category, we're looking at Shugoki and his charged heavies. One of the rare attacks that are longer than a full second and thus have the immense Guardbreak Vulnerability window of 800. At this point I don't think I need to explain why you won't bounce off. Other charged heavies like Conquerors, who have a distinct charging time and the release time, act a little different. You can guard break the attack during the charge, and then it follows the same rule as a normal side heavy. So it still has the small window, the 100 millisecond vulnerability. So until now we've worked with the premise that your opponent parried correctly. We've strictly been looking at scenarios where your opponent correctly parried a heavy on heavy timing. But what if he doesn't? What if he thought it was a light attack and parried way earlier? What if the guy made a mistake and parried at the completely wrong time? Or what if he didn't want to parry at all and instead uses a superior light because he was playing Highlander, a Warlord, or Valkyrie? Maybe you're fighting someone who likes to option select parry. Right now all the previous theory crafting goes straight out the window. You just can't give a definitive answer to the question, against which character can I feign into a guard break to punish a parry attempt? Because there is no correct answer, it all depends on the player. It is never a completely safe option, and no matter how careful you are in using it, you will bounce off sometimes. I can't stress this enough. You can minimize the risks, of course. Unblockables, for example, will not be parried on light timing by accident. So feinting into guard break from an unblockable has a higher chance to work compared to doing it from a neutral heavy, provided you're doing it against a character whose heavies have a large enough vulnerability window. But once again, if your opponent reads what you're doing, he can still mess with you. There also currently exists one move with 0 millisecond guard break vulnerability, and that is Gladiator's Zone. I'm paraphrasing Setmix here, but he basically said that if you attempt to guard break him while he has stamina, you're eating a zone. This just shows that even the tiny 100 millisecond vulnerability of other attacks can make a huge difference. With one move you can react to a guard break, all the other moves will get guard broken instead. I tried replicating the weird instance where a guard break bounces off another guard break, but that is probably caused by lag, and I don't think anyone is doing that move on purpose. It's just a weird thing that sometimes happens and we have to live with it. I hope this cleared some things up for you. You now know the vulnerability window for most attacks, so don't try to guard break attacks you clearly cannot. Learn what attacks it is theoretically possible and limit your attempts to these. And even then you will probably fail sometimes. But now you can be sure that it isn't your fault, but rather a good read or just plain luck from your opponent. Let me know if you have any additional questions or want to add something. Until then, thanks for watching. Laters everybody.